A match hyped up for the ages, a match that would be considered a box office draw. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the head of the table, facing the Grey One, the most electrifying man in sports entertainment, The Rock. This match has been considered a dream match for over several years, but as each year passes by, it gets harder and harder to make. The first time people talked about it was probably 2014, and it was often considered the final thing to establish Roman Reigns as a true star. Once again, this was when Roman was booed by almost the entire crowd and was saying odd stuff like suffering succotash. Since then, he's grown into an elite performer, and I personally started appreciating him more in 2016. There were still obvious problems with his push from my perspective, but I understood why they were pushing him. His matches were getting better, but his push certainly wasn't. After returning from leukemia, Roman had the fans by his side. I mean, this guy battled through a disease. It was heroic. It was amazing. This time around, he was mostly in the mid-card, upper mid-card before WrestleMania season, where it basically seemed like he was going to have a title run. He was going to have that match against Goldberg, but then COVID happened, and by the time he returned, it was a much different character. His tribal chief character showed what Roman was truly capable of. That run leading up to WrestleMania 37 was truly the best run he's ever had. I really liked the insecure bloodline leader Roman. He's grown to a point where he doesn't really need to face Rock, but if that opportunity is there, why wouldn't you do it? It's a personal story that could be remembered for years to come. It would give Roman more credibility, as ridiculous, as almost stupid as that sounds, because at this point, he's essentially 2012 Messi or 2013 LeBron in the WWE. Whoever comes second is so far down below. The only thing getting in the way of this match is The Rock's schedule. Ever since the early 10s, Rock became an even bigger name than previously. He's in these sci-fi movies, features in these box office films, and as time goes on, he's appearing in WWE less often. Matter of fact, the last time we saw him was on the premiere episode of SmackDown on Fox. Before that, you have to go back to 2016. Of course, we can't forget to mention that they teased us at Survivor Series with the entire promotional campaign relating to the Grey One. Another hurdle in the way is, even if Rock is fine, would the production companies risk one of their biggest stars in the world suffering an injury? Movies would get postponed, this and that, but if the match happens, which seems very likely now, one of the biggest questions is, should the match be for the title or no title? There's both pros and cons to this situation. I personally want to see a titleless match, but let me explain why having a title match could be a good thing from WWE's perspective. Some of you will agree with these things. The Universal title up until 2020 had an history behind it. The prestige behind the title at face value is amazing, but when you look at the runs and the matches behind it, it's a bit questionable. Roman's brought the title some much needed importance, and let me just say this personally. I looked at the titles being important before the title run itself, but now it's like everything, and having The Rock compete for it would be huge. Regardless though, Rock competing for both titles would be cool, but if it's going to be a Universal title match, having The Rock main event WrestleMania for it would add to its prestige, even though it's already prestigious now. People would look at it back, they'd be like, oh, Rock competing for this title. Having the match be for the titles also, and I'm just assuming from WWE's perspective, would make some fans that tuned in for Rock interested in seeing who's beating this man. Roman Reigns has been portrayed as an unstoppable champion for over 2 years. Now that he beats The Rock, maybe someone will be like, hey, who's going to end this run if Rock couldn't? I should watch this. I'm interested. Plus, the guy who's beating Roman was already going to be made a huge star. Beating him for the titles would already establish this person as a huge talent, but beating Roman Reigns, who went through John Cena, Edge, Daniel Bryan, Brock Lesnar, and The Rock at 3 WrestleManias, he beat 3 men who shared 26 titles between them. Damn. That's crazy. It's already crazy, but adding The Rock to the list, impressive. Whoever it is, it doesn't matter if it's freaking Damian Priest or Cody Rhodes, they will be elevated to heights higher than Matt Riddle is on a daily basis. When they win the titles, they will be looked at automatically as the biggest star in the company, not named Roman Reigns. Of course, after that, they gotta follow through with it and whatnot, but in the moment itself, they will be just that. There are some pros. Roman and Rock is the box office draw. Having a title on that match makes sense. They did it at WrestleMania 29 when Cena won Redemption, and they gave that story another dimension in itself. But the cons, I feel, outweigh the pros. First of all, Roman Reigns and Rock. What do you think of when you hear those names? Superstars. We throw that name star often to the point where it doesn't mean much, but calling Roman Reigns and Rock stars, scratch that, superstars, makes sense. So why would their story need a title? The names and storyline itself sells the match without the need for a title. Regardless if Cody Rhodes is facing John Cena, whatever's on the card is not going to be the biggest story. But as I said, Roman and Rock do not need a title. It's unlikely to draw more if the title's on the line. Of course, Rock fighting for the title in itself is a bit of a positive from WWE's perspective. But to say they need the title for the main event is ridiculous. Cena and Rock didn't need it in 2012. It was already the biggest story on a card featuring Triple H and The Undertaker in a Hell in a Cell match. Rock and Hogan didn't need it at WrestleMania 18. It doesn't matter if Rock was facing Seth Rollins or Drew McIntyre, his name sells enough, especially on a big stage like WrestleMania and in a match with Roman Reigns. And with WrestleMania, you need a huge story in the main event, something with high stakes. This match, if it's for a title, is obvious as hell. Why would Roman, who went through all of these men on the roster, lose to a guy who's going to be gone and filming a movie? If it wasn't for a title, I would actually get why Roman would lose, but that's a different story in itself. Instead, if it goes the way it's expected, the result is a foregone conclusion, which personally is not appealing to me for a WrestleMania main event. Look at WrestleMania 35, Kofi Kingston's story. Even though I was positive that he was winning, there was a little doubt. Same with Drew McIntyre against Brock. These matches had a favorite, but there was another possibility. With this, 2007 me would think it's unpredictable if it's for the title. One of the most important reasons why I don't want this to be for both the titles is because of Raw. Ever since the beginning of the year, the shows felt empty at the top. Sure, Rollins and Lashley, RK Bro have been carrying the main event scene, and a lot of the matches have been good, but the lack of a world title really is noticeable. Roman as a super world champion doesn't appear on Raw despite having their title, and to make matters worse, the feuds on the show desperately need a title to fight for. There's no real goal on the show at the very top. Seth Rollins is the only person that even mentions the title often. Sure, Riddle got the title shot, but he's not really talking about the title now. And Roman's run happened at the worst possible time. Many guys have momentum by their side, such as Bobby Lashley. Like, him being US champion is cool. He's restoring honor and prestige to it, but I personally want to see him with a big title as a babyface. He's never been this over in his career, and the only thing he could fight for at the moment is a mid-card title. And that's just one example. Seth Rollins, who's turned 180 from a hated babyface to a loved heel, the workhorse of Raw in the beginning of the year, is clearly relegated. We know they value him, they see him as one of their top guys, but with no title to fight for, it's a missed opportunity to do more with him. And then there's Kevin Owens, who's cutting the promos of his life on Raw. He hasn't been this hot in about 3 years. The Judgment Day, who are growing in power and momentum as the weeks go by, they'd make a nice contender. I don't expect them to win it. There's big doubt in that case, but perhaps a title match involving them. RK Bro, we don't need to explain why. Edge, in my opinion, is at his best when a title's involved. There's so much talent, but the title's on a guy who barely appears on Raw and has one title defense every month. Once again, there's both positives and negatives for this. Positive, Roman doesn't appear much, it makes him feel bigger. Negatives, it leaves Raw without a title. This problem might be solved by WrestleMania, but who knows? Maybe they're like, hey, Roman holding 2 titles compared to one at WrestleMania, facing The Rock is better. I thought the story would see Roman Reigns lose his title and lose his mind. He's already insecure in storyline, but dropping the titles would cause him to go off on Paul Heyman, the Usos, and even somebody like Rikishi. He makes it into a family matter, leading to The Rock coming back and fighting for his family. That's how I always thought it would be. If it's for the title, though, I feel that's unlikely. Once again, this is just speculation from me. And another thing to mention is that if it's for both titles, there's a possibility of The Rock winning the Royal Rumble, as ridiculous as that sounds. Because if the person that wins the Royal Rumble is going to challenge Roman, who has 2 titles, it doesn't seem likely to be anyone other than The Rock, right? That's if he appears once again. And my last con, this is a personal one. If Roman has his match with The Rock at WrestleMania, his run will last longer. We all know Roman's going to walk into WrestleMania as a champion. He could have lost it to Edge, the Demon Finn Balor, Seth Rollins, Brock Lesnar, Drew McIntyre. A run so grand can't just end in Corpus Christi, right? It has to be a WrestleMania or another big show. So if he faces The Rock for the title, he keeps it longer. The problem with this is that the run at times has been repetitive. Personally, I've enjoyed almost every Roman match for the title, but to get there is the problem, and in addition, the need to rely on interference from the Usos. It makes every match predictable, and seeing the same scenario after WrestleMania would be disappointing. And who knows how Cody Rhodes will be at the time. What if Triple H thinks, hey, what about somebody else? It sounds a bit far-fetched, but you never know. Now, this is my personal opinion on title or no title. Whatever goes down, it doesn't matter. Rock wrestling in the main event would be cool. I just personally prefer it to be a non-title match because it adds a bit of an element to it. Like, what if The Rock actually beats him? That's what I feel. It's not going to happen, obviously, because they've been courting him for years, trying to get him, but who knows? At the very least, though, I do hope they separate the titles because Raw really, really needs a title. And having Roman face Rock in the only world title match at WrestleMania would be disappointing in my personal opinion. So yeah. Alright, what do you guys think? Roman Reigns and Rock title match or no title match? Please comment down below. And that's it for this video. Make sure you hit the Superman punch on the like button and perhaps the rock bottom on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.